Hello, lovely humans, Jen Fox here. In this video, we are going to look at how to build a makerspace budget in Excel. Woohoo! So, why do we need to do this? Well, when I was running a business, I definitely had to learn financial planning and accounting the hard way. And I've worked with a lot of different makerspaces where this has really been true. I've helped different makerspaces build monthly budgets, build membership models, and that type of thing. And at the end of the day, these types of tools help us to use data to drive our decisions on how best to run our business. So we can look at, what's working well, what we might want to drop or put on hold because it's not working very well, meaning it's not bringing in a ton of revenue and it's maybe costing a lot of money. And it can also help us figure out where to put more investment. And remember, these types of tools are just, one thing to add to your bag of tricks, in addition to talking with different folks and gathering feedback from your community. Cool, so let's get started. All right, woohoo! We made it to our makerspace budget. Oh yeah. All right, so I know that finances can be kind of boring. It was something that I was really reticent to learn, but it has been invaluable, both when I was running a business full-time and just as an individual in the world. It was also something that I have helped a lot of makerspaces with because, our backgrounds might not be in finances, and that's okay. But having a budget is a really, 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 really helpful tool because, as you can see here, we can very quickly determine if we're bringing in enough sources of revenue each month or income compared to how much we are spending each month. So once you've built your budget, I would highly recommend having a conversation with the other makerspace leaders or even your members and asking them, what is your ideal level of risk? So in this scenario, we're spending about 95% of our monthly revenue, and we only have about $800 left over each month. And while that's great because we have some left over that goes to our savings account, typically the recommendation, at least for individuals, is to have 6 months of operating expenses on hand. So in this case, if we have $16,000 of monthly expenses, over 6 months, that would be about $100,000. Let me just double check. So 16,393 times 6, 98,358. Yeah, okay, so that's a lot in our savings account. But the benefit of that is, if something were to happen, like a global pandemic, and all of a sudden you don't have money coming in through memberships like you did every other month, you have an adequate amount of savings to make sure that you can sustain the space, and that gives you the time and space to start to plan ahead and say, okay, well, we lost this source of revenue for the foreseeable future, but we still can do these other things. And so it allows you to pivot and to really modify your actions so that you can make sure that your space continues to be sustainable. I love makerspaces. I think they're a really important resource for our community, and I want to make sure that y'all are able to build a sustainable space so you can keep them open and keep providing really awesome benefits for your community. Okay, so let's dig into monthly income first, because it's a little bit easier usually, not always, but typically what I've seen at makerspaces is that there are a number of different sources of income. If you are planning a makerspace, I would recommend keeping your model, your revenue model, as simple as possible. And so this one is nice because it only has, 4 categories. This one I'm calling other, which is kind of a catch-all. Could be, donations if you're a nonprofit space or what have you. But these 3 things, membership, fabrication services, and classes, are really the bedrock of our monthly source of income. And so let's dig into a sample model that I built for the memberships. So this is something I've done for a lot of makerspaces before, and again, I highly recommend keeping it simple. So many spaces will have kind of this, reduced cost membership, let's say for students or veterans, and typically a basic membership And then some makerspaces might have a full membership, which, for example, could provide 24-hour access to tools or something like that. But the thing that I want to note here is that the basic membership is actually bringing in the most monthly revenue of all of the different categories. I think it's important to have a reduced cost membership so that you can improve access to different types of things for your community. But this is what is helping to sustain the makerspace. Some makerspaces that I've worked with have really thought like, oh, well, this is the most expensive, and so let's lean hard into this category. But at the end of the day, it's your basic members that are keeping the space open. And again, I think a full membership might make a lot of sense for your particular needs. But if you're going to do any sort of marketing, you would probably want to market for more of these basic members. And just really quickly, so to calculate the monthly income, you do the monthly cost times the number of members, boom. And what I love about Excel is that you double click, or you can just drag this down and it'll take this equation and propagate it. So I'll do a little example for you. I'll delete this, and then I will double click this teeny tiny square, and boom, it propagates it for you and it updates. Yay! So then the next model that we have are classes. And again, this is a sample scenario, obviously, but basically what I just want to show you is that you can build out a calendar and play around with these different numbers. So in this case, we have 2 intermediate courses happening each month, which are the most expensive, and a handful of introductory courses, which are a bit less expensive, but it looks like they are bringing in more members. It looks like. In this fake model that I built, it turns out that there are more people in the introductory classes. No, this is actually pretty reflective of what I have seen at actual makerspaces. And then, maybe an open maker night with a fairly low cost drop-in fee. And so what I really want to highlight with this model is do the actuals, like put in your actual calendar, but then look at what is bringing in a lot of revenue. So in this case, the intro to Arduino looks like it's doing the best. So each time that it's taught, it's bringing in more than $1,000 worth of revenue for your makerspace, and that's awesome. It also means that class is really popular. So you might consider, like, even though we really love our intermediate Arduino class, there aren't a ton of people showing up, and the intro to Arduino class is pretty full. So maybe replacing one of these intermediate classes with another introductory class might improve or increase your revenue for the month. So play around with the numbers. It's a really great way to see what's working. And then the other thing really quickly that I've seen a lot of makerspaces do are fabrication services. And the one thing that I want to highlight here is that in this case, our total revenue for all of the fabrication services is only about $2,500. So in comparison to memberships, which is a little over $4,500, and classes, which is the most, over $11,000 a month, our fabrication services aren't bringing in a ton of revenue. So if you're putting in a lot of effort to offering fabrication services, and you're finding that there's not a ton of value, it might be worthwhile to have a meeting and ask if you want to cut some of these services or transition into more classes or something like that. It is a hard conversation, because if you have really great people that are doing this work and it's a good job for them, it might totally be a really good value to continue offering. But all that is to say that these points of data and these models really help us to make data-driven decisions on how to best run our space. We might have some ideas anecdotally, but once we see the numbers, we can actually see what's working, what's not working, and where we can improve different things. So those are the 3 models that I have for monthly income. Again, this one's just kind of a catch-all. But now let's go to our monthly expenses. So expenses can be a little bit daunting to do at first. So what I would recommend is just, start with what you know. For example, rent and mortgage. You probably know that off the top of your head, and that's great. So start by inputting your rent and mortgage and any other expenses that you are familiar with. Utilities, web hosting, data storage, and software, that type of stuff. I'll talk more about the contractors in a second, because I built another model for that. But there are a lot of expenses for pretty much any type of business. Your expenses are the number of expenses are going to be way more than the number of sources of revenue, and that's okay. Start simple, and as you remember things, add them to your list. I always recommend using actual data wherever possible, but if you just want to get a mock-up model just to see the numbers or a rough estimate, it's okay if you can't remember if your insurance is $320 a month or $300 a month. Just put it in, see what it is, and then as you have the time, gather and put in the actual data. Okay, so really quickly, let's cover I want to show you just the contractors model. So in this case, we have different categories of contractors, one for the class instructors, one for the fabricators, and one for the administrative folks that are keeping the space up and running. And so we have different fees depending on, what level they're teaching at. And so here you can see how much they cost, and you can compare that to the amount of revenue they're bringing in. So in this case, the fabricator contractors, each for this particular month, they cost you about $600, or you paid them about $620, which is awesome. And they brought in $2,500 in revenue. So, maybe you say like, okay, well, this is giving good jobs to folks. They really love what they're doing. And, it's bringing in a lot more revenue than it's costing the space. And so you might say, well, okay, this seems worth it. But again, this is another place where you can see what is working and what's not working. For example, if you find that, your classes are costing you a lot of money, you might consider raising the price or increasing the number of hours or something like that. But yeah, so play around with these numbers because it's really going to show you what's working for your makerspace. And again, use the data to change and pivot as you go. And that was a really hard thing that I learned when I ran a business, is like, sometimes the things that we love doing are not the things that are working very well. And it's not to say that you have to stop doing them entirely, but it's just to say, we want to build spaces that are sustainable because we can continue doing what we love and we can continue providing good value for the community. So yeah, please reach out if you have any questions about this monthly budget. Remember that this is a monthly budget for 1 month. Your expenses and your income might be changing across months, so you'll want to create this like monthly income category for each month. So let's say you could just do this. You could copy and paste, and you could say monthly income February, and build models for each of these. So again, you could just copy and paste this, but you definitely want to track these things as they change over time. And oftentimes it's great to look back over a quarter, over a year, and to make those big decisions on, what do we change, what do we keep, how do we adjust this going forward. Cool. All right. So thank you for sticking with me for over 10 minutes of discussion about a financial model. Fun. No, but I really hope that this is helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you need any help implementing this for your particular makerspace, or if there are any other tools or services that you are interested in that Microsoft might be able to help with. Please reach out and we will see how we can help. Thanks so much, and we will see you soon. Bye.